How you doing, everyone? Just me today for buy, hold, risk it, and sell. Scoop, hopefully back next week. It seems like he's got a small window on a Wednesday that he's dedicating to the boys. So give him some love. If you are missing him, though, let him know in the comments there, or reach out to him, that's for sure. So with our squads this week, a lot of guys at different values. So we got Cleary here, has lost 55k, which is great for any non-owners, but what you need to look at is there's obviously guys like Cam Murray that are under 700k. You've got the Munsters, the DCE that are under 800k. And you look at your team value and you've got to make a decision yourself as to what's going to be better for your trade situation. Like if you don't have many trades left, then maybe trying to get a little bit, maybe one extra player that could be in your 17 on a week-to-week basis that you're not going to hate. Like they're a 35 player or a 40 player or something like that. They can be anywhere between 400 and 600k. If you can get one extra guy of that in your squad when you're low trades, then maybe Cleary's not the guy for you, and you do go for another, cheaper guy in Munster. In DCE, you try to get Murray in, you try to get Ruben Garrick in as well that can cover a couple of positions. That type of player, or two of them, rather than going for a Cleary and a cash down, might be the better way to play it for you. But if you're sitting there with a lot of trades left, then Cleary would be a terrific play because if an injury comes up for you in these last 6 rounds, then you can just straight swap that guy if it's a 1 or 2 week injury. And if someone's sitting there with 2 trades or 3 or 1 or 0 or whatever like that, then it might not be worth just getting another cash down and actually filling out your squad a little bit more. So Cleary, we know what he can provide for us because before the injury game for him, the 17, he had hit 106, he had done 79, 92, obviously a bunch of 60s and 180 or 78. So he has the high games in him, obviously 200s this season, which means that could have happened at any time. It could happen last week and it didn't, thankfully for those non-owners. But going forward now, he plays some slightly harder opposition in the Sharks in Melbourne, in Manly. And you look at the games that he got 100 against, one of them was Manly, one of them was the Broncos. So really, the matchup doesn't matter for him. And sometimes, like on the weekend, he didn't have to do as much, or he was the second to last pass, or Luai got an easy kick through for a try. And yes, he was getting some goals, but for the most part, they are going to score tries in general. And you want it to probably be against a harder team where he has to tackle a bit more. He has to run the footy a bit more and get the guys in a better position. He's obviously going to kick for bigger meters, 600, 700 like that. So Cleary will do well this week, you would imagine. I'm going to be captaining him again. Turns out he's actually owned by 69% of the top 100. So yeah, most of the guys that did grab him, that makes sense because most of those guys in the top 100 are looking for that overall glory and probably have a little bit of a higher team value. You see the top 5,000, it's 40%. So a little bit harder to get him in without really massacring your team. So that's how I'd be looking at it with Cleary there. Okay, Cam Murray, 676. So he's someone that I'm targeting this week. Obviously, the 69 for him on the weekend. One of his higher games of the season there. He had an 87 in there, but that is his second best score there, which is 70 they ended up getting, and that's very, very good. Obviously the big minutes, and he hasn't had that for the majority of games here, and it is up against the Tigers this week. So is he going to continue to get those massive minutes against a Tigers team, or will he drop back a bit? And then when you're hoping for some real big attacking stats for him, because you saw here that the 2 missed tackles, that's a little bit low for a lot of the games that he's had. He's had 2s, 3s, 4s pretty comfortably across the season. He has a few 0 games in there, but that's when he was in his good form. Coming down to sort of round 8 onwards is when he started missing tackles more and wasn't scoring his best. So Murray, definitely not without risk, just like we spoke about last week with him, but he obviously came out and dominated and proved me wrong for that week. But in this week that I'm likely to get him in my side, does he go a little bit lower, or is this a week where he gets another try? Who knows? So low break even, obviously for the rest of the season, is what you're looking at. You get 5 games out of him. He has a bye in the second to last round. And so some close games in there, some easier games as well where he could get some tries. So interesting Murray, but definitely someone that, he should be able to hit at least a 50 average, and that means he's underpriced. So you definitely should be looking at Murray for sure there. Daniel Russell, 265. So he comes off of 40, played the full 80 minutes, and that's with Jack Bird coming on. He actually played a bit through the middle. So the big thing with Russell here is the fact that Bird could come in at any time, and I believe it will be for Russell. It won't be for Billy Burns. So they actually play a little bit later in the week at 5:30 on Saturday. So with him, I get why you would be looking at him. He's playing big minutes. He scored 40 last week. He did have some issues. He had 3 missed tackles, 2 errors there, which wasn't great. And looked like 80 minutes is probably a little bit too much for him just to just for where he's at right now. Maybe 40 minutes or something like that. But it looks like if Bird's going to continue this role, he'll get it. If Bird happens to get back into the starting side, then it will be for Russell. So low minutes may come, but do you need him to play big minutes? Maybe it's a bonus. And if it is a bonus for you, then and you're using him as a cash down and you have extra trades available, then he'll be fine for sure. Finna Firiaki at 268k, so he's got the slightly higher break even, but still very cheap, which is good. And the minutes on the weekend, he got 39 and ended up with 16 points. So it wasn't his best game. He had an error. He had 2 missed tackles and still good run meters. But going forward, you want to hope that he can sneak that line break, sneak that try, which he has a couple of them. 23 in 12 minutes, 45 in 40 minutes. A pretty cool stats there for Finnair. And he's a solid cash down for sure. Looks like he'll have the spot for a few weeks. And then, he's going to be in the team-ish every week, which is a positive. So at a minimum, you'll get someone that'll play. Hopefully somewhere in that 15 to 20 odd range. If he gets Jags and attacking stat, happy days for you. I think that's really all you wanted to look at with Finnair. Spot on the side is probably a little bit safer than Russell, but Russell has a chance of playing bigger minutes. So up to you on him there. Let's go Reece Walsh at 618. So we need to look at him just because he's a slightly cheaper wing fullback option for those that are interested. He does have to buy in round 25, but you got Roosters this week, which is going to be a slightly easier matchup. Should be able to score well. Then it's Cowboys Para. So for him, is he matchup proof these days just because he's so good? Potentially. He's definitely a pod. So if you're looking at a point of difference play, guys, for those that aren't sure on what a pod is, then Walsh can be that guy. But he's one of those players that seems to, he can score really, really well. Be involved in a lot. He had 2 line breaks. He had 2 try assists. He had the try. 208 meters gained, but still only 47. Where you look at, what Teddy can do in certain games. And Walsh, he has some big games in him. He has a 64. He has a 70 and a 71. But those games there, he's absolutely dominating. You look at these ones early in the year. He's getting try assists in every game. He's getting 3 try assists in some, 2 tries and a try assist, and still only 51 points. So tackle breaks sometime, he just seems to be too quick for him and just just avoids contact altogether. Apart from those couple of games, he has 3 games over 10, and then all the rest he's fairly low, which is funny how that works. So Walshy, definitely a solid option. Will he score better than his price at 618? Yes. Do you want him in your side over, getting Teddy or getting, obviously having Drinkwater would be cool, over Ruben Garrick or something like that? I think Ruben's going to be more consistent. Do you want that? And then he plays every game as well, whereas Walshy misses the one. Isaiah Yeo, 822. What's the likelihood of him missing the last game? Is probably the question you need to ask yourself. But if you don't have many Eels, then it's something I think you can probably take the risk on. If you don't have Cleary yet and you want a mid, Isaiah Yeo could be a really good play because he could play all those games. Maybe he just plays less minutes in the last one against Cows. Because I think, as I said yesterday, it's going to be a bit of a statement game, I think, for them. That one against the Cows. So he's definitely someone that could hit you a 60-plus average for the rest of the year. And at 822k, very, very solid. Got everyone like Payne Haas and stuff has a bye coming up. So that's the frustrating thing. All right. People are bringing Brandon Smith in. Everyone I'm looking at, guys, here, from here on until about halfway, is going to be guys that are on the hot list. So guys that are getting brought in. And then from there till the down, all the sellers. So we'll speak about all of them as we go. Brandon Smith, 517k. Probably his best game of the year on the weekend, which was good. 59 points there for 72 minutes. He tackled well. 43 tackles was his highest of the year. Yep, highest of the year there. Got a couple of tackle breaks and offload. Ran for 103 meters, which is the big tick. And you see that game against the Dragons around 80, ran for 120. And that's where he played really, really well, basically with the same minutes. So only 2 games this year that he's gone over 70 minutes, and he was dominant. So it's a big risk. At 517k, I've had him in my side twice this year. I won't be doing it again. So you can decide what you want to do with that. He has Broncos this week, and I doubt he dominates them like he did the Titans. So, as I said, you can decide what you want to do with Brandon. He obviously covers 2 positions. Will play the rest of the year, hopefully, unless he's injured or suspended. And, it's a risk. That's all I'm going to say. Dill Edwards, 574k, a little bit more expensive now after a couple of okay weeks in a row, which is, one okay week in a row. Actually, no, I thought he was cheaper than this. Okay, this is the lowest he's been all year. Scratch that. Which is crazy. So 570 odd for a guy that hits a 50-plus average with Cleary in the side. Probably a bit of a no-brainer. But they did play the Dogs on the weekend. And, how is he going to go against the Sharkies in Melbourne? Let's have a look at him against a couple of the harder teams. So Eagles, he got a 98. They were a little bit massacred at that point, weren't they? No Tommy, I believe. Warriors, a 73. A Broncos, a 60. So it actually looks like he plays better against some of the better teams. 51 in round 1, 71 against the Eels. And they actually play a couple of hard ones. So Edwards, cheaper than Walshy. I would probably pick him ahead of Walshy just for the consistency when Cleary is in the side. So, yeah, again, make that decision if you wish. For feeder, so he's down to 806, so he's out of that bracket now where he's a little bit too expensive, and you can almost straight swap him for a couple of guys. And with the 62.3 average, you look at those scores across the year, and these last couple have been very, very unlucky for him. Lucky for non-owners, that's for sure. He had the one tackle break last week, and really, apart from the 30-minute game that he came off the interchange and had a shocker, his lowest has been 4. So they really nullified him well on the weekend. Tackles were about normal, but meters gained were low, and offloads were down as well. So 46 in 61 minutes. Obviously, if he played the last 20, he probably does end up at a 58, 60s, whatever, and then a chance for scoring a try. So for feeder owned by a lot of people, if he goes nuts, then you are going to be missing out. And I imagine that that going nuts game is closer than we may think. They do have a tougher run, right? But he was also seems to be a player that is fairly matchup proof. You had the Broncos there for 67, Eels. Yeah, then you had a couple of easy ones with Knights and Dogs. You had Broncos again for 74, Raiders with 80. So I don't think it really matters for him. They haven't played the Panthers yet, have they? No. So we'll see what happens there. But Panthers, 40 minutes off the bench last year, which wasn't nice. There you go. Yeah. Anyway, should be fun. That's 4 weeks away as well. So you're going to miss out on a lot of good scores if you don't grab him because of that here. Okay, Teddy, the 100k more expensive option, but has more pedigree than that of Edwards and that of Reece Walsh. So 47 average this year. He's backup price just above that now, and he should be because he's been absolutely dominant in the majority of his games. He does have 3 low ones this year. One was injured, and then the other 2 were just shockers overall. And in amongst that, 84, 70, 51, 62, and 87. So Teddy, obviously one of those guys, is a bit of a game breaker. He can go really big, and then he can go really low. So up to you on this one. He will play the rest of the year now. 6 games to go. No buys. Owned by an okay chunk of people. 46 in the top 100, including myself. 39% top 1,000, 34 in the top 5,000. So he's actually a little bit of a pod. Anything under 50% at this stage of the season will class as a point of difference because, you know, the guys like Harry Grant and stuff that are very, very highly owned. So Teddy, one of those guys I think is worth getting in your side. Probably the cheapest you'll get this year with a 28 break even. So go for it if you like. Garrick, the other one, 673k. Who would you pick, Garrick or Teddy? Garrick has the consistency in his belt. So he's going to be that 40 odd minimum. Yeah, he had a HIA and he still picked up a 45. So that's where he'll be at in this fullback position. We saw what he did last year when he played fullback, and very, very good scores. Even when they blew it all up at the back end of the year, he was still getting 30 odds, and they were having an absolute shocker. So you see a lot of games there, 66, 62, 70, 70, 58, 78. So very consistent across that period before they had all their issues as a club. So I actually think he's a better player again this year. I think he's improved, and he's going to be one of those guys that will stick in that solid range where Teddy's going to be the 70 or 80 odd, and then he'll be down. But, you know, Garrick plays the Dragons and plays the Roosters the next couple of weeks. So a couple of easier matchups for him, and I think he can do great, and obviously covers 2 positions. So probably Garrick just over Teddy at this point. All right, Payne Haas has gone down just a tick there, obviously with his 55 last week. He was just a tiny bit higher. Yeah, 6k higher? He was at 863. So for him there, break-even's not too high. 857, we're going to expect a big game out of him. I'm expecting a 70 plus this week, a 68, somewhere there. He just seems to do that more often than not. Every second week, it seems to be a big one. You got 75 in round 18 there. You got 93 in 15, 86 there. Yeah, and then you go to 67 and a bunch of 70s in a row. Earlier on in the season, he had his ankle issue. Seems like he's okay. Obviously, he had some lower tackle break numbers and only just the 1 offload in this one. So expect those numbers to pop back up in this week against the Roosters. It's going to be a nice battle through the forwards, and he'll be the mainstay there. Ruben Cotter at 492. I just can't see anyone picking him up. I just don't see the reason why we would look to him. The minutes aren't going to be there until I think the last couple of weeks before finals, and 50 minutes he has to score a try in that time. And just you can't pick someone up when these are the scores that are in and around Origin, but they're not nice, are they? He's a very easy candidate to get a 30 odd because he has limited offloads. He's had 1 offload for the year, and tackle breaks aren't high either. So he needs to be on there for big minutes, 60 plus for him to do well. And a 492k just seems like a stretch to grab him in your side for sure. DCE at 737. We'll speak about Munster in a sec as well, but it's so cheap at the moment, 737. Yeah, really was a game breaker for those that grabbed him last week with a 73. No tries in this one, just 2 try assists, and then just really worked him around the park. Plenty of run meters, obviously offloads in there as well. DCE, a great alternative if you don't want to go to Cleary, and obviously he beat Cleary by 22 the other day. So yeah, for those that own him, amazing work, and he's definitely a great candidate as a buy in this week. So yeah, nothing much else to say. He's going to be a 60 guy for the rest of the year. He'll have a 50, he'll have a 70 odd, he'll have a 40 odd, he'll have an 80. It'll happen, but yeah, you're holding him for 6 rounds now. And you've got Dragons this week. He should do well against Roosters there. Penrith, should be fine. You know, maybe that's a 40 odd game for him, unless he happens to get some attacking stats or Manly do really well. And from there, it's, you know, there's Dogs in there and Tigers, so he'll be fine. Munster is 734, so he's 3k under now. And still a solid score for him on the weekend at 58, so 2 58s in a row. He's been more consistent in the last 4 games, which is good, after having a few low ones in there. And again, with Storm needing to bounce back from a couple of their pretty average games, they've got some tougher opponents. Obviously, you know, Para, I think, is going to be a really close one. And then Penrith, but you know, DCE has Penrith as well. So Munster, DCE, both likely to step up against a really tough opponent. So wouldn't be worried about them going into that game for sure. And Munster's a great option for your side. Obviously, a little bit less owned. Yeah, a little bit less owned than DCE across the board there. So yeah, if you want someone that's a little bit, you know, slightly less owned, or you like watching him play more, then grab him instead. Preston, he's on the sell list. So strangely enough, the flu last week has gone, yep, that's enough from you, Jacob. He's still a 50 average guy, and he's going to do that very regularly. He's got 64, 44, 50, 49, 65, 53, 67, obviously a 45 and a 60 his last like 2 months. So that's well over a 50 average. He has that 18 in his average at the beginning. He also has a 35, and this is his first year in first grade, and he's not getting those rests that he was earlier on the year. So he's very clearly a 50 plus scorer, and it seems silly to be able to be moving him on. But I do understand if you're looking to use him to go up to Cleary or something, or use him to go to Fafita or something like that, then that's understandable. But please don't trade Preston sideways to another 50-point scorer or a 55-point scorer, because I think Preston can average that over the rest of the year. Yes, a bye next week, but how many Bulldogs players do you have? I think you can cover him next week. And Dolphins this week, I think you're going to want to play him in that one. All right, Nelson at 606. He's probably the sell on this list. I'd be selling him over Preston every day of the week. With him being out this week, it's frustrating, and 2 low scores in a row, 39 and 29. I think it's time to go. He served his purpose for a couple of weeks there. 71-62 was great, but now it's time to move on. Good stuff, Nelson. He did a good job. He did fine. 534 for Jareem Buller, obviously a lower one the week just went. Comes up against Bunnies, Canberra, Warriors the next 3. And do we expect a 45-50 average? Probably not. Can he hit you a 35 to 40? I think pretty comfortably. 28 is going to be a pretty low one for him. He had low tackle break numbers. He had a forced dropout, which was nice, and some kick defusals. He had a couple of errors. So yeah, that's not going to happen every week. You see kind of every second week on average, he has a couple of errors. He'll be fine, and he'll be cool to be a looper. But in these weeks coming up, where you might have a couple of players out each week, like this one with Tohu and SJ, or when you get to the later rounds, do you want to be playing him just straight in your 17 each week? I'm not sure. I think I'm going to be doing the Murray and Garrick in for Buller and also Moses, just to remove one of those guys in round 27 for me, and get a surefire sort of 40 plus in Garrick, whereas we're not sure with Buller, and I don't want to get stuck with that personally. But if you're in a lower team value situation, I am in the top 100, so have a decent team value. If you're not in that scenario, then I think holding him is completely fine too. Tohu Harris is 682. I think he's a clear hold. I understand why some people are moving him on, but 682k for a guy that can very easily hit you a 50 plus, very easily hit you a 60, it's frustrating. His PPM has been amazing the last few weeks as well. 60 in 58 minutes, 31 in 36, 59 in 54, 63 in 71, the one before that. So he's been great on that front, but the issue is just that he's not playing 80, and he doesn't have to. So if you think that will continue, there will be a game in there where things don't go his way, when they start beating up on teams like the Tigers, and if he doesn't get any attacking stats, he will get a low score. So I do understand why you may look to move him on in this week for someone that's obviously playing, and maybe upgrading. The one I don't like is SJ being traded out. He's traded out by over 1% of teams, I think 1.2% overall. And at 852k, I just think that's a mistake. He is very much owned by everyone. If he continues to go on this streak of scoring really, really well, You look at these last bunch of games. He has a 30 in there in the wet, which was yuck. But 95, 75, 71 to 30, 67, 82, and 75. If you're trading out someone like that, you have lost it because, I'm sorry, respectfully, because he's scoring better than Hines. He's scoring better than Cleary at the moment. Yes, he misses this week, but he's the best scorer in the game basically at the moment. Like, he's averaging 70 plus the last. It's him and Scott Drinkwater that are scoring the best at the moment. You know, guys like Corey Horsburgh, who is a buy by the way. I think you just need to keep Johnson. I understand you might want to go him to Cleary, but he's scoring better than Cleary. Cleary hasn't been here. Cleary just got 51. So, yeah, it'll help you out this week for sure not having him on the bench, but I think pretty much everyone's going to have him on the bench. Look at how high the ownership rate is, and if he keeps getting 70 odds, you're going to be upset, unfortunately, that you don't have him, or you haven't got to Cleary, or you haven't got to DC or something another way, in my opinion. Tanner Boyd, he's on the sell list, and I get it. 579k. Got hooked on the weekend. This is what I was hoping for a long time ago, but didn't happen. 14 in the 60 minutes. Not great for me. Missed a few tackles. He's been missing a lot more the last bunch of weeks. There was that little period there where he was absolutely dominating points-wise and missed tackles weren't coming as much. But since then, he's back up to the 2, 3s, 4s, and 5s, which isn't great. He's been kind of solid of recent time, but that 14 would have got everyone to rage quit, which I understand, and comes up against the Cowboys this week, which I find will be a difficult matchup for him. Being able to put on points, but also just miss tackles, I'd imagine, will come, considering he's on the right side there, and we know who ran at Moses last week, Lucy Leilua. So, yeah, I think they'll be able to do that again, and Tanner is a pretty decent sell. Fine for you to hold, obviously covering hooker and half, but if you're covered in those positions and you need to use him, go for it. Tungol's a tough one. At 698k, likely just to be out this week. People are going to want him. You're going to want him in that last bunch of games, like against Manly, against Titans, and Para especially. I think you're going to want him. This out this week is frustrating, but it did sound like it was going to be a 1 to 2 week injury, and this will be 2 weeks, and he should be back for that Melbourne matchup, you'd imagine. Not owned by a lot, you are kind of missing out, unfortunately, if you do own him this week, which is just, as I said, just unfortunate. If you want to straight swap him, that would be fine, I do understand, for another good center, but you want to go tip of the top. You want to go straight up to the top, the plus 50 guys, like the Danga guys, obviously, of the world. You want to have Garrick in there with Manu, something like that if you're going to trade him, or you can get him to a DCE or a Munster or something like that. So you don't need a center. You maybe have Lemuelu, Garrick. Geez, you wouldn't have all of them, would you? And maybe you're playing Manu in the wing fullback position, and you play him, or Garrick in the wing fullback, and you play him in center instead, and you can get DC or Munster. I'd be doing that and trying to hold him the 1 week, because he will be important, but I do understand why you look to move him on as well. I've toyed with the thing of actually holding Moses, but my thing is I have 4 eels, and that's my big personal issue. But if you have like 2 eels, him and Maddo, or him and whatever, Hopgood still, obviously, then I think that he should be able to score a lot better over these next bunch of weeks. He does have Penrith, he does have Broncos in there, he does have Melbourne, but I think Melbourne will be fine this week. I think he'll score pretty well. I think he'll go back to some of his better scoring. He's coming off 2 low ones, 42-35, and the missed tackles are annoying there, but he hasn't had anything over a 5. And this week he does. So, yeah, very frustrating on that. But you see all those 70s in there, and you can definitely go back to that. And if you are low on trades, I'd be holding. I have 4, and I kind of do want to hold, but I also want to yield him, like I said, as well, which is the likely outcome at the moment. I think I'm about an 85% chance of doing those 2 trades. So make your decision. I think he's a hold, or you can sell if you like. If you have multiple eels and you want to get him to Cleary or something like that, I'm all for it. Metcalf, so a low one on the weekend. I doubt he'll go that low again when he comes back, but the buy this week, people are using him as a cash down. If he's a good cash down to then go up to someone you want, a Fafita, a Cleary or something like that, I get it. He's served his purpose. He's been great. I hope you didn't have to play him last week, but if you did, you'll take all those great scores beforehand. So well done, Metcalf. You've earned your rest, and hopefully he's back fit and firing. They do have a nice run though, remember, so he could come out and hit a 45 average pretty comfortably over those last few weeks. And then Jackson Ford, the last Warrior on the list at 614k. Again, very much has done his job. He's been great since the start of the season at 340k. If you've held him all the way through, happy days, and he's got a bunch of really good scores of recent time. 40 is his lowest in the last 5, so amazing from him. Again, he's someone that could get some tries over the next few weeks once they come back off the bye, and if you don't need him this week, then holding him is sweet. If you do need to use him as a trade bargaining chip, then do that as well. Thanks, guys. That's the video for there. I hope that helped you. Pretty short and sweet. Obviously, without Scoop, we don't have the the nice long discussion that we get to have in the back and forth. But yeah, you get to hear my voice as always, and I'm sure if you're all still watching these videos right at the end of them, then you obviously like me. So thank you for liking me. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next few videos. See you later.